We're here outside the courthouse. This is the area where people are going to be coming in and out of the courthouse. We've already seen Joe and Catherine Jackson. We've seen LaToya come in. We've seen Randy Jackson come in. We're still waiting for Janet Jackson. I know LaToya tweeted a short time ago saying Michael's spirit will be with us in the courtroom and he will make sure the right verdict is made. So LaToya already inside the courthouse right now. We're waiting for Janet Jackson to arrive still, but basically it's just a lot of controlled mayhem, if you will. People are here, it's packed, it's crowded, and everyone's just waiting to see what's going to happen.
Okay, Rob Hayes, thanks very much for that. We continue to follow this breaking news, a live picture from Air 7 over the criminal courts building where a verdict has been reached in the trial of Dr. Conrad Murray, Michael Jackson's doctor, involuntary manslaughter case. The jury, it was a 6-week trial. They deliberated for less than 9 hours. We're going to go to Carlos Granda, who is live outside the courthouse with more. Carlos.
This is a 3-ring circus. I believe I'm in one of the rings, and it keeps getting smaller as more people keep coming here and keeps crushing me. As you can see, a lot of people just showing up, just wanting to be in this general area when the verdict is read, just to hear what happens. And you can hear some people chanting guilty. Again, I'm in the pro-Michael Jackson camp, the ones that feel that Dr. Conrad Murray is guilty, and these are the ones that have been waiting here and just trying to hear the verdict firsthand, and just as one person said, be part of history. A person here who's from the UK said she wanted to be here just to be part of history and be in this spot. She's actually here on vacation, had a few hours to kill, so decided to come by the courthouse and get involved in this. As you can see, a lot of people here getting busier by the moment. The LAPD is right here on Temple Street trying to keep the crowd off the street, and they've done a remarkably good job considering how big this crowd has grown. Again, hundreds and hundreds of people here. I cannot tell exactly the number of people because I'm in a rather cramped situation at this moment. We can barely move. But again, a lot of Michael Jackson supporters here just outside the courthouse. They've been seeing some of the Jackson family members coming in, getting very excited over that, and just waiting. And as all of us are waiting to hear what the verdict is. Reporting live in front of the courthouse, I'm Conrad, ABC 7 Eyewitness.
All right, Carlos, thank you very much. As you can hear from Carlos's live shot, many people will have very strong opinions. A lot of people will want to know more about what's going on. We're getting some information now to give you a little bit of an idea. We do know that District Attorney Steve Cooley is probably going to issue more of a statement than anything else after the verdict. He's probably not going to answer any questions. That certainly, obviously, could change. But we're also, just from the matter of course of what's happening, we said that Dr. Murray is likely going to be arriving right around 1 o'clock. That's what one of our sources told us. But we're also hearing that David Walgren and Deborah Brazil, both defense attorneys, have gone into the courtroom. One of the attorneys is actually in the hallway there. Photographers are allowed to go into the courtroom. So that means people are starting to get in and get about the business of arriving, because we're at 1 o'clock is when this verdict is expected to be read. Now, that is an estimate at this point. Certainly, that could be delayed a little bit, but you won't have any kind of camera seen from inside the courtroom until the judge says so. Then we can start to get things going. We're hearing about 24 Michael Jackson fans, 20 or so reporters, and about 4 LAPD officers are also going into the courtroom, getting ready to go in as well. Okay, and we're also getting information that the defendant, Conrad Murray, is inside of the courthouse. He has been there for quite some time, so all of the players are almost ready for this to happen in less than 10 minutes, we are thinking. Right now, let's go to Eyewitness News reporter Robert Olguin outside the courthouse across the street. Robert.
Yeah, we've been here since the start of this trial, gavel-to-gavel coverage since the very beginning, some 6 weeks ago now. And as we approach the very end of this trial now, this is becoming more and more chaotic, if you will. As you heard from the reporters across the street, Carlos and Rob there, the crowd is gathering. It's becoming larger and larger. There's a side issue at play here. Right, probably 100 yards from us is the Occupy LA demonstration that's happening right in front of City Hall. So you have several hundred protesters that are camped out in front of City Hall. Some of them are starting to walk over here and are starting to chant behind the reporters and amidst the Jackson fans and Murray supporters that have gathered across the street from me in front of the courthouse. So that crowd is getting bigger and bigger by the moment, because I think what's happened is that the protesters across the street at the Occupy LA demonstration have sensed that something's happening here, that something's about to happen. So they're starting to get over here and trying to get their message out as they're starting to chant and wave signs behind some of the people here. So the crowd gets bigger. It becomes more and more difficult for LAPD and the Sheriff's Department to have crowd control on what is still a busy street here. Temple is still open, and you have buses and traffic right in front of what's happening in front of the courthouse, and it can get a little dicey. It reminds me a little bit of the scene in front of the Jackson family compound in Encino back in 2009 when I was covering the death of Michael Jackson in June 25th of 2009. It became so crowded with Jackson supporters right in front of Havenhurst there in Encino that it became almost very dangerous, because you had traffic going through there amidst the hundreds of fans that were showing up. So you had eventually police have to close down traffic, have to push people off what was then not a sidewalk to be had there in front of the compound. And here you have sort of a similar picture now, as more and more people are getting here, more and more of the crowd chanting guilty, guilty, and justice for Michael, as clearly the supporters and fans of Michael Jackson outnumber the Conrad Murray supporters, who have pretty much been about the same 4 or 5 people since the trial started. It's been about the same group of 4 or 5 that have come out here with signs saying fair trial for Dr. Murray. Well, everyone is about to find out what exactly, whether the outcome is what they were hoping for, because the verdict will be read at 1 o'clock is what we're being told. Some 5 minutes from now was what Judge Michael Pastor announced earlier, and the jury reached their unanimous verdict at 11 o'clock this morning, after what was about 8.5 hours of deliberation over the course of 2 days. 6 hours on Friday, 2.5 hours today. And the crowd continues to grow here. Now the entire sidewalk on this block is now covered with people, as may be visible from overhead. A black Cadillac Escalade just drove up. Typically this would be someone from the Jackson household. Sorry, let me get out of the way here. Someone from the Jackson family, I apologize, would usually be driving up. They've been alternating between Rolls Royces and these black Cadillac Escalades. There's another one there that's pulled up. Looks like someone's getting out right now. I couldn't see it from my perspective who that might have been. We've seen LaToya, we've seen Jermaine, we've seen mother and father, Catherine and Joe, come in earlier. That may or may not have been another sibling I couldn't see from my perspective. But everyone's here showing up, trying to get into position for the verdict that's supposed to be read at 1 o'clock. Dr. Murray is in position, we were being told, already in the courtroom. Defense attorneys already in place, prosecutors in place. So this could happen any moment now is when we find out the fate of Dr. Murray. Again, he's been charged with 1 count of involuntary manslaughter. The prosecutors say they just had to prove negligence, that his negligence led to Jackson's death. Not that he set out to kill Michael Jackson. There was never that something for the jury to consider. Merely that through the course of his actions or inactions, those things resulted in Jackson's death, and that a doctor should be held to a higher standard is another thing that prosecutors argue. And again, it comes back down to propofol use in the home setting. There was some debate throughout the trial over whether Jackson had been infused the night he died, meaning there was an IV drip that delivered the fatal amounts of propofol that combined with other drugs leading to his death, or whether he had been injected by Dr. Conrad Murray, as he told investigators, as he told police himself days after the death of Michael Jackson. There was some debate over that, and of course jurors would have to wrestle with exactly what happened, the chain of events. But prosecutors were very wise to say in their closing arguments, saying, look, it doesn't really matter though. It's propofol being used in a home setting, which should never happen. This is an anesthetic that's supposed to be used in operating rooms, in hospitals, in clinics, where there are other technicians available and other monitoring equipment. That is one thing that prosecutors drove home every time you had a witness up on the stand, even defense witnesses. When their expert witnesses were on the stand, you had the prosecution go after them and say, listen, would you administer propofol in someone's bedroom? And each and every single one of them, the 2 main ones, said, no, absolutely not. There is nothing you could pay me to do that in a home setting. This again coming from the defense's expert witnesses. So this is where we're standing right now. Dr. Conrad Murray facing this 1 count of involuntary manslaughter. If convicted, could face a maximum of 4 years in prison, but that would seem unlikely in the situation with overcrowding at the state prison level and at the county jail. This could come down to some expert witnesses that we've talked to here, or rather I should say some legal experts that we've talked to, have told us no, that basically this might be a case where he gets a bracelet, gets sent home under house arrest. But again, we don't know just what's going to happen yet. The judge has 4 weeks to make that decision as to what the sentence will be if he is found guilty. There is, of course, always the chance that he is found innocent today, and we'll find out here in about the next few minutes. That's the latest from outside of the courthouse. Robert Oldine, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Back to you.
All right, Robert, thank you very much. And you see the images from outside. Again, just to reiterate, David Walgren, Deborah Brazil, the prosecutors have gone into the courtroom already. We have Miriam Hernandez inside the courthouse. She among many of the reporters who will also be there located inside taking a look at what's going on. We've seen that one of the defense attorneys is in the hallway. Do not know if that was Chernoff or one of his other defense counsel, but I just wanted to point out that many of the parties involved from the prosecution and the defense, they are now moving inside the courtroom. You see the seal right there, right now. The jury reached a verdict some 2 hours ago, and that verdict is likely to be read any moment now.
And as you saw, we had video earlier. The family is inside the courthouse. We first saw Michael Jackson's parents, Catherine and Joe Jackson, arrive. You can see that video. We're rolling. Joe Jackson in the hat and Catherine Jackson arriving at the courthouse with brother Jermaine Jackson. We also saw Reby Jackson was there as well, and then LaToya Jackson arriving at the courthouse, as well as Randy. And
Joe and Catherine, the first of the family to arrive. They were there very quickly. And again, you're seeing there the image on the right, tape is on the left, the image on the right is live inside the courtroom where we are awaiting the verdict from the jury who is deciding the involuntary manslaughter case against Michael Jackson's doctor. They deliberated less than 9 hours after a 6-week trial that included, when we heard, some might say, the eerie voice of Michael Jackson. We again heard a tape of Dr. Murray's description of events to police, but we never actually heard from Dr. Murray on the stand himself. He accused of causing Michael Jackson's death. Right.
He made that decision late in the trial, advised, of course, by his attorneys not to get on the stand and give testimony.
Again, we continue to wait. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit about what's going on, this all is as a result of Michael Jackson's death in June of 2009. Testimony was presented that Murray agreed to become Jackson's doctor as Jackson was preparing for those comeback concerts in 2009. The defense trying to prove that Jackson was ready for it, and the prosecution was showing that Jackson was in very bad shape. And they played that tape. That tape was so strange for so many people to listen to. And then certainly the images of Michael Jackson after he had died as well.
Right, that tape is so dramatic to actually hear Michael Jackson's slurred voice. And so we are waiting for these jurors to come in. I want to ask Dana Cole, a criminal defense attorney, when jurors come into the courtroom, do they give any indication as to whether they have a guilty or a not guilty verdict? You have been in court trying these cases with defendants for years. What do you know from what your experience is?
Well, there are a few signs. You know, there's certainly no sacrosanct rule, but oftentimes if they do not make eye contact with the defendant or his attorney, that indicates it's a guilty. Sometimes jurors will even crane their necks not to look. You know, it's so apparent, it's so obvious. If they're not smiling, if they have sort of a somber look, that also would be an indication of a guilty as opposed to a not guilty. If they're more relaxed, then typically that would be a sign of a not guilty.
I would think in this case that could go either way, though, because a not guilty verdict from this jury is going to heap a lot of, you might even say, criticism on this jury. I could say that would go either way on this one, wouldn't it?
You know, that's certainly true. Now, the problem is because the camera focuses on the seal, we're not going to really be able to see the jurors and see what their body language is and their facial expressions. So we're really not going to know. But if you're sitting in the courtroom, oftentimes lawyers, you know, they're fixed gaze on those jurors just for any sign. Even when the judge reviews the jury verdict before it's announced by the court clerk, you're looking at the judge to see, you know, any facial expression.
And we are close to the moment of truth for Dr. Conrad Murray, a man who has been a doctor for years and had the admiration of patients and has never been arrested or imprisoned before. We had sources saying that he was, of course, anxious about this. This is the biggest moment of his life.
It's just huge. Is he going to go down in history as the guy who killed Michael Jackson? And that's going to be a scarlet letter on him that would probably be far worse than any jail